right, so who's ever fought with their parents before? I'm pretty sure everyone has. Who has? Raise your hands, right? There's usually a set outline. Once you start, your anger just takes over, and you get so angry and pent up that you're just fighting with your parents, and then you're just sitting there fuming and staring at them, wondering why, you know? Eventually, you hit this point, and everything in your head, the anger, it just subsides, and then you realize, you know what? My parents probably do have a reason for saying whatever they are saying in our arguments, and you know what? Even as their child, we probably should take into consideration what they are saying and respect their decisions, no matter what they are. So, as I was saying, my culture today is going to be the culture of respect, and the objects I decided to bring today, it's going to be really weird, trust me, are these. So, who knows what these are? Does anyone? Right? They're incense. So, what these are incense, of course. They're also called joss sticks. And normally, people use them for aroma because it smells good, of course. And other than that, as for me, I come from a Chinese background. And because of my ethnicity, we come from an area where we're taught that these little things right here, that's our culture, and that's what we use to respect those who have passed on and those that are higher beings above us. And usually, you can see these in about probably every single establishment you can think of, from temples to restaurants, even cemeteries, which is going to sound really scary, but bear with me. So through this speech, I'm going to show you or discuss what these are, and hopefully you'll better understand the culture of respect and how big of a role it plays in both religion and culture. And first, I'm going to be talking about a brief history of what these are, and eventually I'm going to tell you how this reflects how I am today. Now, the beginnings of joss sticks came from Egypt, and from the beginnings, it came from the 5th dynasty. Needless to say, their apples were probably actually apples and not phones. So either way, these in Egypt were used, to pray to the gods. And if you know the history of Egypt, they have deities such as cats, they have the Sphinx, they have other gods, and a whole bunch of other things. And these were used as offerings to them. And because we already know that the weather is not controlled by how we pray. Okay, maybe it might be, but we never know. But in Egypt, they believed that these controlled the weather as well as the outcomes of war. If you didn't use these, you potentially could lose your entire country or nation because you just didn't pray. And the idea was, back then, was that gods up there would control everything that happened in our physical realm. Later on, though, this culture would later translate into the Chinese culture, which is related to me. So the Chinese culture originates, well, of course, in China. And these joss sticks normally are also used for the same concept. You use it to pray to the gods as well as respect your elders who have passed on already. And though its meaning is a bit different in Chinese cultures as compared to back then in Egypt, it still revolves around the same central idea of respecting a higher being. Now, as for how it relates to me, I'm going to give you 2 stories about myself. So the first story starts off when I'm a little kid. And when I was little, needless to say, I was still trying to learn my please and thank yous. And back then, I didn't really know about the idea of respecting somebody that was a god. And needless to say, I'm an agnostic, so I don't really believe in it. But in terms of that, in the Chinese culture, our elders we believed that these gods were so important that we have these things called joss houses. Now, joss houses are basically like altars, and basically, you put an offering in there, and there's a statue. It could be Buddha, it could be some other god that's in Chinese culture, but either way, you put your incense in there, you put offerings like food, and that's how you respect them. Now, you usually see these in Chinese restaurants, but as for me, when I was a little kid, needless to say, I was really short. I'm still short today, but I was even shorter then. When I was younger, it was really hard for me to reach the countertops, especially at the restaurants. So when I was younger, I didn't really understand the concept of an altar house until I accidentally stepped on one. So what happened was, I was trying to reach the countertops by just jumping on there and just grabbing on and holding on for dear life. And by the time